Hey folks, welcome to another day, another unboxing. I finally have the Galaxy S20 FE Fan Edition 5G, the $700 phone that out OnePlus this year. This is a phenomenal phone. I haven't used it other than very briefly before, but I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into it. Kind of like the final phone of 2020 for me, really, but I know it's one of the top 5 for me in 2020. So I'm super excited. Here's the box, some stuff. IMAs are on the top and bottom. I'm not going to show you that, but let's get started, shall we? Ta-da-da-da, boom. There's actually a little divider here, so let's pull that out before we forget about it. And let's have a quick look. I suppose there's some documentation here, so SIM removal tool and some paperwork. Yes, quick reference guide, the new Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G. Terms and conditions, we do have a quick reference guide in full color. Check this out. This is nice, right? Tells you where everything is. And yes, it does support micro SD, which is nice. So there you go. All right, let's take a look at the phone real fast. This is it. Ooh. And then there's another divider here with the charger, of course, and the usual 25 watt brick, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put up the exact wattage up here, but here you go. And then we've got a charging cord, USB A to C, that's what I was trying to get to. And then we've got this thing, which in the US no longer ships with the little Type A to Type C adapter, but that's where it would be. Well, that's it for the box. Let's have a look at the phone, shall we, folks? Let me remove this screen protector. You ready? Oh, I didn't make much of a sound at all. The good news here is that this is a flat screen, so there's no curved edges on this phone, which makes me pretty happy. And it's a plastic back, so it's a metal frame, but instead of a glass back, they went with this matte plastic finish, like faux glass, the same as what's on the Note 20, basically. It fingerprints pretty quickly, which is kind of surprising, but honestly, it feels really nice, and most of you are going to probably put this in a case. In my opinion, this is the only major compromise this phone makes for $700, the fact that it has a plastic back instead of a glass back. But look at this display. Boom. Very little bezel, even on the bottom. You've got a perfectly flat edge. You've got 1080p AMOLED, 120 hertz. And it's not just AMOLED, it's Samsung AMOLED, the best displays in the world right now. Hole punch camera, 32 megapixel, f/2.2. 0.8 microns up here. That's interesting because a lot of the other flagships from Samsung have 10 megapixel front cameras. So there you go. And stereo audio uses the earpiece and a speaker down here. So that's pretty great. In-display fingerprint sensor. It's ultrasonic, just like the other Samsung phones. So in the back, 4,500 milliamp hour battery under the hood, 25 watt fast charging, wireless charging, 15 watt, reverse wireless charging, and IP68 water resistance. I mean, $700, folks. Remember, this is kind of insane. Like, seriously, I'm just kind of amazed at the fact that they're able to deliver something at this price point. Now, there are some compromises, of course, other than the plastic. I guess the next one, but I can live with it, is only 6 gigs of RAM on the US model. 6 gigs and 128. There is a 256 8 gig version in other markets and an 8 gig 128 gig version as well. But I'm pretty sure that in the US we get just 6 gigs and 128 gigs. But again, micro SD for expansion, so you're not SOL. And so, I haven't said this yet, but again, $700, but this has a Snapdragon 765. This is not a Snapdragon 765G. This is the full-on, the whole enchilada. This is using Qualcomm's flagship chip from 2020. That's why it's so incredible, right? Like at this price point. And you don't give up on these little features like wireless charging, IP water resistance, stereo audio, etc. So let me walk you through the edges before we talk about the cameras. On the right hand side here, got a volume rocker, power lock key. Then on the bottom here, you've got that one of two speakers for the stereo sound. You got the USB Type-C port. You got a primary microphone, some antenna bands. On the left hand side here, there really is nothing much to see. And then on top, you've got the SIM slot and a secondary microphone. Pretty standard fare stuff. But the camera system is really interesting. A lot of phones at this price point are sacrificing in the imaging in terms of telephoto. They all seem to be throwing the telephoto out the window this year. So this has a full-on 3x optically stabilized telephoto. That's one of the big exciting things here. Main camera is 12 megapixels, f/1.8 with 1.8 micron pixels, dual pixel autofocus OIS. It's the same 12 megapixel you see on things like the Z Fold 2 and other flagship Samsung phones this year, which is great. The S series, other than the Ultra, really frankly. Then you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It's f/2.2, 1.12 micron pixels. And then again, as I said, there is a full-on telephoto here. It's an 8 megapixel, f/2.4, 1 micron pixels, 3x optical OIS telephoto. So stabilized, small pixels, but other than that, that's basically the only compromise you're making here. So honestly, very few compromises. Plastic bag is the biggest one. 6 gigs of RAM is a bit of an issue. It's not every day you find a phone with this spec sheet for $700 that supports all the 5G bands and 4G bands in the US. That's sold on lock. One UI is an acquired taste. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but honestly, I think it's way better than what Samsung used to do before. And this phone is about to get Android 11 and a bunch of updates for a while. I think it's a no-brainer. I think if you're not buying a OnePlus phone this year or a Pixel, this is it. So, folks, let me know in the comments what you think. Is this your phone? Are you using it? Would you use it? Would you buy it? Would you buy a Samsung phone when you're like an early adopter, tech-savvy person who wants to break the Apple-Samsung dichotomy and get something else, but you feel like this is the best that you can get for your money? Like, let me know, because that's a challenge for some of us, right? Like, we want to support the kind of underdog like OnePlus and stuff, although I guess OnePlus isn't really much of an underdog anymore. But anyway, let me know. If you want to hear my thoughts on this phone, I've actually talked about it extensively on the podcast already. Obviously, I'm going to talk about it some more now that I have a unit to play with for a longer time. Listen to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Spotify, pretty much everywhere a good podcast can be found. And remember, like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, comment below as I said. Click the notification bell. I'll be back with more videos soon. Cheers, everybody.